Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the Spring 2023 semester taking the CTS-233 Section 400 Network Programmability course. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DEVASC 200-901 Certification Exam Preparation course, and in this video we're going to be closing out our coverage of Lab 1.2.2. where we're going to look at our final Linux review. So what are you going to learn about in this video? We're going to see how you can shut the system down, how you can cancel that shutdown. We're going to learn how to find some basic IP address information. And then we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into looking at the processes and how we might be able to manipulate what processes are running and actually kill processes that might be running. And then we're going to go deep into the Advanced Package Tool, apt. And finally, we're going to close out this activity by looking at the password utility and answering the final 3 questions of the lab. So let's go ahead and dive in here. We are in our DEVASC virtual machine, and we're going to talk about how we would shut the system down. So I could say, shut down now. Now, if I was to try to run this, you'll see that it's actually going to shut the virtual machine down. And so in order to start the virtual machine back up in VMware Fusion here on my iMac Pro, I would simply press the forward key, and then that's going to start the VM back up for us. Now, it's going to bring it back right into the state that it was in prior to the shutdown. Now, it's a very quick and easy thing to do. You could also do this from your VMware menu at the top here under Virtual Machine and Shutdown. However, that's how you would do it on the Linux system, and in fact, on other Debian-based Linux systems, like Ubuntu, for example, we can go ahead and do the same thing. So let's go ahead and reopen the terminal window here. And once this window opens up, I'm going to show you how to increase the size of the font so that we can see what's going on. And so you just simply go to View, Zoom In, and let's make this as large as we can. And then this is how you can increase the size of your font. This is how I increased the size of my font before I did my initial recording. And so we're right back to where we were. Now, another utility that we can use here on the Linux CLI is the date command. And that's going to show us the current date and time. And the system, the VM, is getting this from the host system. And so date is one way to look at that. Uname is another very handy Linux command line utility that's going to give you information about the version of the operating system that you're running. And you can see here that we are running Ubuntu. All right, well now let's go ahead and talk about how we would shut the system down, but maybe we don't want it to shut down right away. Maybe I want it to happen in about 2 minutes, and I want to leave a message here that says, system going down in 2 minutes, please log off and save work. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and you can see that what it's doing here is it's saying, hey, this message is popping up on other users' terminals who may be logged in here, and it's letting them know that within 2 minutes the system is going to be shutting down. And so we can simply type in, as it tells you there, shutdown-C in order to cancel. Now, when you look at that, it would have been nice if the shutdown-C actually echoed something back, maybe telling us, hey, the system shutdown has been canceled. It doesn't, but that's okay. So those are the basics around shutting a system down. And again, if you weren't on a virtual machine, if this was maybe on some sort of physical hardware and that this was the host OS, you'd end up with similar results, right? It's going to be shutting things down. So how do we see some basic IP address information? Well, I can say IP space address. And this is going to go ahead and print out information around the interfaces that this system believes it has. So you can see we've got the loopback interface. Here's ENS32 with the different IP address information associated with it. You can see we have this dummy 0 interface. Now, this is a virtual machine, and it is actually using the interface that is on the host operating system. And that's how, when we get ready to run some ping commands, you'll see that we have access out to the internet. Now, another command is ipconfig. Now, or I'm sorry, ifconfig. is ifconfig, and that would also show you, ipconfig is on the Windows platform. Ifconfig will actually show you the similar information, but in a little cleaner format. Now, ifconfig is probably deprecated or going to be deprecated at some point, but it's still here, so it's a handy little command that you might want to use. Again, that's just ifconfig. Now, you can also say ifconfig-a, and again, you get the same information. If you wanted to know more about ifconfig, we could say man ifconfig, and you can see here there aren't too many options, right? We can specify an interface if we wanted to. There's that -a option. What do those options mean? Display all interfaces which are currently available even if down. -s, display a short list. So let's see what that looks like if I was to say ifconfig -s. And so there are the interfaces, and it gives you, again, an abbreviated sort of output as to what's going on those interfaces, right? So that's a great way to check and see, hey, what are the interfaces that are configured? What are some of the IP addresses on those interfaces? Interestingly enough, they show you the ping command in the lab. So they have you ping www.cisco.com, and you can see that ping is going to run until you do a Control-C or you tell it to stop. Now, if you didn't want that, if you wanted it to have sort of Windows-esque behavior, we could say ping -c, and that's the count. So how many pings do we want to execute here? We could say 4. And then I could do, let's ping the Google DNS servers. Right, so it'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we are done. Again, if you don't put the -c in there, what's going to happen is it's just going to run forever until you tell it to stop or until the system shuts down. All right, now the next thing we're going to take a look at is the ps command. Now, ps is going to report a snapshot of the current processes. And you can see it gives you some information here about the different versions of the PS utility, the Unix options, the BSD options, which stands for Berkeley Software Distribution, back when University of California was working on their own little Linux version way back. And then you've got some GNU long options, right? So you can see here the PS-AUX or PSAUX. So just be aware, and this actually gives you a nice little set of examples here. And we're going to be focused in on some of those right there. But again, the man page is very handy. And then a little bit further down, you can see that it's going to give you information on what those options are going to do. So let's see what some of those options are going to do. Let's start out first with just PS, right? So PS is just going to show me the processes that I'm running, right? I've got my login shell, and you can see it captured the fact that I ran the PS command merely moments ago. Now let's run that again, because I want to show you here the PID. That is the process ID. In other words, this is how the Linux operating system is keeping track of what processes are running, is that there is a process ID. Because you'll notice when I said PS the first time, the process ID was 2783. I run it again, it's 2784. If I run it again, it's 2785. And it's simply going to be incrementing that number each time I run PS, because it is a mutually exclusive operation every time I run it, right? So these PS commands are not linked, right? They're individual, mutually exclusive commands, and so they get their own little process ID. So let's take a look at a PS-E. Now, what is that -E showing me? Well, the -E is showing me all of the different processes that are running on the computer, right? Or on this virtual machine. And you can see there are quite a few, not as many as you might see on some larger server systems. Again, this is just a small VM for our DevNet studies, but you can see we have the process ID listed here, process ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And again, this is showing you everything that is running on, or all the processes that are running on the system. Now, if you didn't want this whole list to overwhelm you, we can use what's called a pipeline. So I could say PS-E and then pipe it to more. And what that's going to do is, you can see down in the lower left-hand corner here, it says more. So I can hit the carriage return key or enter, and it's going to go one line at a time. If I hit the space bar, we're going to go about a screen at a time. but allows me to control what's going on. Now, what if I said PS-E and did the greater than sign and redirected the output to my procs? In other words, to a file with the name my procs. Yeah, as before, we don't see any output because, again, we've redirected the standard output into that file, my procs. And so we basically can capture the processes that are running and drop them into a file. And we do it just like that. Now you'll notice the question mark here, and this is for the virtual terminal, or I should say basically the terminal here on which the process is running. The question mark means that it's not actually running in a process, or in a terminal I should say, but that it's running in the background. So here you can see PTS0 and then PTS0, and so that is what I was running my process on. Now, let's see what happens here if I was to say PS minus EF. And you can see that when I dump the F option in there, that the F option gives me not only all of the processes that are running on the computer, but it's going to give me some verbose detail. Now, you might be thinking, wouldn't it be, PS minus EV for all this verbose output? And, that might make a little bit of logical sense. However, here, we're simply seeing with the -F option all kinds of additional information. And so if I was to roll back up here, you can see the parent process ID, right? And everything spawns and starts from, you can think of it as like a hierarchy, from the parent process ID number 0, and then from that, all other processes spawn. So you can see here that PID, the process ID 1 and 2, their parent process ID is 0. And then from that, process ID 1 and 2, everything else flows here. And you can see it's basically 2 for the most part, right? So it's kind of like a little hierarchy where process ID 0 is the parent process ID of all other processes in a way when you look at it here. All right. You can see the system time, and we see the additional information for the commands that we're actually running or run in order to generate that process. So what I could do here is let's do this. If I was to say sleep, now sleep is a pretty cool command, and you just give it a number of seconds. If I were to say sleep 3, you can see that for 3 seconds, the terminal was asleep there. So what if I say sleep 900, right? We would be sleeping for 9 seconds. Now I can stop this with a Control-C. If I rerun that command and put an ampersand at the end, it's going to run it in the background. Now you'll notice that that ampersand generated some output here. It's showing me that I have one process running in the background, and the process ID is 3266. How can I confirm that? Well, I could just say PS. And sure enough, there is 3266. That was the first process I'd put into the background. It's running in the background, and it's just going to sleep for 900 seconds. So it's going to run for 900 seconds. Now, the reason I started this process up, you might be saying, okay, well, that's kind of a waste of time. However, it's to show you this, how we can kill processes off. So I can say kill, and if I say -9, you can think of it as that means with prejudice, that it's going to kill whatever the process is, as long as I've got permissions to kill it, and it's going to kill it dead, right? So I would say kill -9, 3266. And you can see that the kill command doesn't give us anything back when we run it, but if I say PS, you'll notice, aha, that was just killed. And it shows me that it was killed, and we no longer see process 3266. So not only can we list out the processes that are running on the Linux operating system, we can actually manipulate the processes, and specifically, as long as it's not a process being run by the root user, where we'd probably have to use the sudo command, if it's just a process that we have started, we can actually kill that process. And that's how we would do that. All right, now let's go deep dive here into the advanced packaging tool, or apt, APT, and we're going to be specifically looking at some of the different apt commands like apt-get, apt-cache, So basically the first command that we're going to run, and make sure that you're clear on the differences here. So when I say sudo, and now remember I'm making system-wide changes, we need sudo in order to run this. So I'm going to say sudo apt-get update. Now, what does apt-get update do? This is basically using local databases that are configured on this system, and I'm going to show you exactly where those are at. They're in etc apt sources.list. So sources.list is the file. So running this command is important because it makes sure that we get the latest bug fixes, updates, security patches, whatever the case may be. However, this is not upgrading anything. This is just simply updating our local database that we have here on the system based on the repositories, and let me go ahead and say more, etc apt sources.list. So this is the file on the operating system where all of those repositories are being looked at, right? Whoops, sorry about that. So you can see here that we've got securityubuntu.com/Ubuntu, focal security, in releases, updates, backports, updates main, universe, right? So those are all the sources we're looking at. Where are all those sources coming from? They're coming from this file right here, etc apt sources, or sources.list. And so here it is. And take a look. The uncommented lines are where we're getting these repositories. Major bug fix updates, well, we're looking at archive Ubuntu focal updates main restricted. And so that is exactly what we were seeing when we said sudo apt-get update. Again, we're just updating the local database of the available updates that are out there. We're not actually upgrading anything. And so that's important. That's a key difference between sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade. All right, now we're going to take a look at another advanced package tool command, and that is apt-cache search speed test. And so what are we doing here? So what exactly is apt-cache doing? So this is a package tool command that gives us information about the availability of packages on our system, right? And again, these are all Ubuntu or Debian-based system package management commands. And so this is going to give us information about available packages. You can search for the package by name. We can use a keyword. So here I'm just saying search for speed test, right? So in other words, apt-cache is going to tell me, hey, what packages might be available that have speed and test in the name. And you can see we get like this monster list. So what I could do is, we know we're looking for speed test. So I could say, let's grep on speed test specifically. And there you go. You can see we have speed test -CLI. And what I did here, to take a step back, is I put the pipeline or the pipe symbol in here, and I created a pipeline. So what I'm saying is the output from that command, which we can see above here, which was just a ton of stuff, that was what we were looking for. And since I know that I'm looking for just speed test, yeah, I searched on speed and test, but now I'm going to refine. I'm going to sharpen the pencil here and try to be very specific and say, yeah, run this command and then send all the output through this pipeline. And I'm going to grep through all this output here. I'm going to grep and try to match speed test, which I did. And you can see here, command line interface for testing internet bandwidth, right? Just like they have the GUI, or you can actually, go to the web page even. There's an app as well for the iPhone, the Android. But you can run this from the CLI. And this is what we're going to be doing. So now that I've found that, hey, this package exists, let me go ahead and say sudo apt-get install speed test -CLI. So I've updated my package database, right? I've searched in these package databases on my system here to see, hey, is speed test even available to me? And I found it, and now I'm going to install the speed test app. And you're going to see that it actually installs rather quickly. And then in order to run this, and I'll show you the absolute path name to where speedtest-CLI is going to be installed, you simply say which speedtest-CLI, and it installed it in user bin. Now remember that because we're going to remove this with the purge command later on, and you'll see that when I say which speedtest-CLI, that it's gone. So how do we run it? Well, easy. We just say speedtest-CLI. Now it's going to go ahead and run. Now I have gigabit Ethernet up and gigabit Ethernet down, but my guess is that on this virtual machine, we're probably not going to see that. Although, take a look at that, 384 megabits down, 303 megabits a second up. So pretty good, right? Not bad for a virtual machine that we're pulling basically, 300 over 300. So very, very cool. And let's see, is there a man page? Did a man page get installed for speedtest-CLI? Awesome, right? So the man page is here. So now I can come in and see, all right, well, what are some of the options that we've got here, right? Single connection, I can display the value in bytes. Simple, I can suppress the verbose output, right? Show the information in JSON format. Now that might be interesting. So if I was to try to run that again and do --JSON, let's see what we get here. So it's going to run the speed test. I'm assuming that it's going to give us everything in JSON format. And would that not be interesting when we go to talk about the different data formats like XML or, you got to love this, right? So take a look at that. So we're getting the JavaScript object notation equivalent output as to what we would have received if we had just run the command normally. Now, I think it said this is coming in bits per second, or maybe byte-cent or something like that. So again, take a look at the information that we're able to get here. So I see my IP address. It's actually giving the latitude and longitude. I'm assuming that's of the ISP. You can see there, take a look at that, Verizon Fios Business, and this is a business Fios line that I do have. So very, very cool to be able to get that information in JSON format. All right, well, that is how you would use the speed test CLI. However, what if we now want to go ahead and upgrade things? And I took a snapshot of this VM prior to doing this video. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. I can always revert back to that snapshot. So again, updates my package database with all of the available updates that are out there, but it doesn't update anything. Now, sudo apt-get upgrade, on the other hand, and you can see here we've got quite a few things, and we're going to go ahead and roll through this because, again, like I said, I have a snapshot of this VM that I can roll back to. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Go ahead and update everything. And so what's going to happen now? Upgrade everything. So now all of these utilities that had available updates are being upgraded. So how can we kind of summarize this, right? So the difference between apt-get update and apt-get upgrade is that update updates the package database, and upgrade is actually going to install those packages that have been updated in the package database to the latest version. It's as simple as that. All right. So we've done all the work here with speedtest.cli, and boy, there's a lot of stuff that's being upgraded here. And depending on how long it's been since you've upgraded things, this may take a while. The first thing we're going to do is check our Python version at the end of this here. And so while this is running, and I didn't expect it to take this long, I'm going to go ahead and pause, and we'll come back when this is all done. All right, so as you can see, it finally finished up. I guess 2.5 years of updates took a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but we are back, and let's go ahead now, since we've done the upgrade, is we want to go ahead and we're no longer going to use speed test, so I'm going to show you how you can remove individual packages that you might have installed. So let's say sudo apt-get, and purge is the option we want to use here. And then we just simply put in the name of the package that we had installed, right? Or of the utility that we had installed. So if I say sudo apt-get purge speedtest-CLI, and I'll say yes, we'll go ahead and get rid of it. Again, you can easily upgrade it again, and it is gone. So now when I say which speedtest-CLI, it doesn't show up. In fact, if I try to run speedtest.cli, it says no such file or directory because, again, we've just removed it. And so that's how you can remove packages. The last thing we're going to take a look at here in this lab, and we're going to answer the 3 questions, is, whoops, sorry, I want to clear the screen there. Excuse me, is the password utility. So if I typed in passwd, you can see that it's going to prompt me for the current password. And if I was to put in what I think is the current password, and it says there's no password. So you can see we get this token manipulation error here, right? So, but that would allow you to change the password if you remember the current password, and it would reset it, right? So the option they want you to look at is the password minus capital S. And you can see that we've got some fields here. Now, it would be great if at the top of this, it had some sort of a legend that told you what was going on, right? So even taking a look at the man page for password, if we come down here to the -S, you can see it's going to give you some information here. So the status information consists of 7 fields. The first field is the user's login name. And again, the man page is where you would want to come in order to kind of decrypt the questions here at the end of this lab. It says the first field's the user's login name. So we saw DEVASC. Second field indicates if the user account has a locked password. So L would be locked password. No password would be NP, or has a usable password. And that's what we saw was the P. The third field gives the date of the last password change. So I'm going to copy this information right here. Watch what we do here. I'm going to do a control click. We're going to say copy. I'm going to quit. And I'm going to say VI password -S, right? We're going to drop that in, and it does not like that. It doesn't like the cloverleaf approach to pasting. So we're going to click control and then paste. So we're going to have this here. Let me clear the screen. I'm going to cat password -S, and then we're going to say password -S, so we can see what's going on here, and we can tie these things together. So the first field is the user's login name, right? And so that is what's showing up right here. We can see the P shows up right here, meaning we have a usable password, right? And we'll say user's login name. The third field gives us the date of the last password change. So the last password change was when this VM was built back in June 17th of 2020. So it gives us some historical information. The next 4 fields are the minimum age, which is 0, the maximum age, which is 99,999, our warning period, an inactivity period for the password. Now, these are all in days. So the question is, what's the current status of the password? Well, our current password status is that this is a usable password, right? We see right there with the capital P. For the user DEVASC, it is a usable password. What's the minimum number of days that must pass before the password can be changed? So the minimum number of days, right? The minimum age right here is 0, meaning I can change this password whenever I feel like it. That's what the 0 means. The 99,000 was the maximum age. That's going to be a lot of days, right? So you probably won't be using this VM in 99,999 days. And then the third and final question is, what is the number of days after the password has expired that the account will remain active? Well, the inactivity period for the password is that final field, and that's that -1. And so what we can say here is it's the number of days after the password expiration that account remains active is -1, meaning that even if the password has expired, the account is going to remain active. And that is what those 4 follow-on fields mean. All right, well, this is going to do it for Lab 1.2.2, where we were taking a look at some Linux utilities and command line options that we can run with the utilities. And we did a deep dive here on the advanced package tool. We took a look at the password command. We looked at processes, hopefully added some value around what it is you're trying to figure out on the system and what you're learning in the course. Hopefully you're enjoying the course and picking some things up. And that is going to do it for this video tutorial. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.